Coming up, the future of view-limiting devices, simulated instruments, there's an app for that.
Plus, a look back at the Aviators Showcase in Fort Worth and a look ahead at the BizJet show in Vegas.
And honoring the contributions of Latinas in aviation. AOPA Live this week begins in just a moment.
This is AOPA Live This Week with Tom Haines and Alyssa Cobb.
Lots of folks are talking about it this week, and it clearly makes you wonder, what were they thinking?
By now, many of you have already seen the video. Let's start with the great news. The pilot is okay. This Stearman was part of a parade in Winnie, Texas. It was towed down the parade route, but after the parade was over and the road still closed, the pilot decided to take off from the divided highway. Takeoff roll starts out just fine, but then the PT-17 Stearman leaves the pavement and gets into the sloping grass median.
It's tough to see over the nose. You know, even when you're flying along in level flight, your forward visibility is really poor because you fly those things in the back seat. There's, two wings out in front of you and a big radial engine.
The Stearman gets airborne but clips a light pole and then catches a traffic signal span wire. The preliminary FAA accident report says the aircraft lost power before striking the span wire.
What we see a lot in general aviation mishaps when people do something out of the ordinary that's out of their typical habit pattern. And I suspect that was the case here, where taking off on a road like that was something maybe he hadn't done before or hadn't done in a while. The planning that would be involved in that would be pretty extensive. So you could map out things like your takeoff distance, how you're going to measure that and assess that, taking off on roadways, which of course are different than runways, and you really have no obstacle clearance like a yellow center line gives you. So, being able to assess all of that would take quite some time to do and be some pretty extensive map study. Regardless of what comes out, it's just a reminder to all of us that we have to plan for not only, the takeoff roll and other events that we know are going to happen, but we always had to put some buffer in there for the unknown.
Now, of course, we'll have to wait for the FAA to complete its accident investigation before we know all the things that may have contributed to this accident. Local press reports that the pilot chose to take off from the road because of an approaching storm. That might have limited the time that could be devoted to planning an unusual takeoff. So listen, one lesson here is that you really need to plan thoroughly when doing something out of the normal, or perhaps just get a tow back to the airport and wait out the weather.
That's right. Or find a building, perhaps you can put it in right there.
Right.
Safety is always best.
That's right.
Well, the most comprehensive look at general aviation accidents is the AOPA Air Safety Institute NAL report. ASI has just released the 31st NAL report online. The report covers calendar year 2019. And that's because it takes up to 2 years for the NTSB to issue its final reports on accidents.
It shows a slight increase in the fatal accident rate over 2018. We've known that for some time, but what this full report now helps us do is understand what's underneath that, the causes of the accidents and where we stand, and we're able to sort of compare them historically with trends.
That kind of analysis gives ASI the information it needs to design safety programs to make general aviation even safer. And now that analysis is more up to date.
We've been working hard to reduce our data lag in the NAL report, whereas it used to be 3-year-old data. Now it's basically 2 years old. We've cut that data lag down by about a year.
Basic accident statistics are constantly updated. And speaking of basic flying skills, here's a stat that remains pretty hard to understand.
And then another thing I would say that is, disappointing in the report that we still got some work to do is we still average fuel-related accidents remained steady. And so we're still averaging a fuel-related fatal accident about once every 6 weeks.
So, Tom, it's a bit of a head scratcher why we keep running out of fuel.
It is.
Plan those fuel stops a little closer, do a more careful pre-flight.
Yeah. Yeah, there are lots of things you can do, and of course, if you're willing to invest in modern digital fuel senders and new fuel gauges and that sort of thing, we can actually come up to maybe having fuel information that's pretty accurate on our airplanes for the first time in a long time.
Really wanted to see the Vashon Ranger. Been reading a lot about it, and wanted to see it in flesh, and it's a nice looking airplane.
And that's just one of the reasons that some 500 people braved the threat of bad weather and came to the Texas Fort Worth Alliance Airport last Friday for the second AOPA Aviator Showcase of the year. Yes, there was a little rain, but not nearly what was forecast. And those folks who were able to get up close and personal with a bunch of interesting new aircraft really enjoyed them, including this, the VL3 Evolution.
Yes, it's all composite, the Rotax engine, either 100 horse, 115, or the 135 with the 915, which this one is. And they all come with a parachute. They've got retractable gear and 55-degree flaps, split flaps, so they land slow and fly fast.
And this airplane from the Czech Republic is fast, 200 knots on 9 gallons an hour. It's an experimental. You can build your 51% at the factory in about 2 weeks. There's also a fixed-gear LSA version available.
It's a great flying airplane. It's got carbon push rods, so everything is really tight. It flies slow real well, and it flies fast real well.
Now, flying a little slower into the backcountry is your kind of thing, then the Vashon Aircraft Ranger might be your ticket.
The two main design missions of the aircraft were flight training and backcountry flying. So as you can see with the beefy landing gear and the big tires and that kind of thing, so it is literally designed to take a licking and keep on ticking.
The all-metal Ranger can get off in just 315 feet and land in under 500 feet. There's now an IFR version, which is proving popular with flight schools. Fully decked out, the Ranger is about $160,000. Of course, there was a good-sized exhibit hall at the show with everything from new avionics to ways to buy and insure your airplane. How to buy an airplane was just one of the many seminars offered too. So Alyssa, it was a good event. People seemed to really be happy to get out and get to touch some airplanes and talk to people and just enjoy some camaraderie.
I'm glad the weather held so folks could come out and enjoy the day.
It was good.
All right, now stop me if you've heard this one before. At the very last minute, Congress passed a stopgap bill to keep the government from shutting down. And we told you last week that the government, except for parts of the FAA, was within hours of running out of money. So the next crisis will now be December 3rd when the money runs out again. Now, some changes to the standard glider squawk code, and it's the result of a safety issue AOPA advocated for. Starting on November 1st, glider pilots flying VFR should squawk transponder code 1202. The FAA says pilots should use the code whether or not they're talking to air traffic control. The change will help controllers and other aircraft quickly identify gliders in the area.
A high honor for a woman who has touched thousands of young lives with the message of aviation. Shelley Simi is being awarded the 2021 Brewer Trophy from the National Aeronautic Association. The trophy was established back in 1943 to honor, quote, significant contributions of enduring value to aerospace education in the United States. Simi is co-founder of the National Coalition for Aviation and Space Education. That began as a partnership with the FAA and other organizations to create a clearinghouse of resources for teachers. She helped create the National Learn to Fly program, Be a Pilot. Previous award winners are Barrington Irvin and the AOPA You Can Fly program. Congratulations, Shelley. Well, it's Hispanic Heritage Month, a time to recognize the contributions of Hispanic Americans in the United States. To celebrate, College Park Aviation Museum in Maryland hosted an event for Latina aviators. AOPA Live's Josh Cochran has the story.
A historic day at a historic airport. Over a dozen Latina aviators touched down at College Park Airport on Saturday for the Latinas in Aviation Global Festival. College Park Airport near Washington, D.C. is the world's oldest airfield still in operation.
How fitting for us to be here and to represent the rarest in the industry.
The women shared parts of their stories on stage, attendees learned more about aviation, and the Navy even brought a helicopter to the event. The goal? To share the message that anyone can pursue a career in aviation.
So important to have met other fellow Latinas and hopefully to continue to increase our numbers in this amazing career.
The women here all shared their stories in a book called Latinas in Aviation. It's a compilation of stories about the challenges these women overcame to become aviators.
I think what I'm most impressed with is the stamina, the resiliency that it takes to go against the odds. You know, when you see people that don't look like you and say, you know what, the aircraft does not know if I'm Latina or not. The aircraft knows precision, right? And when you can get past those limitations and say, I am going to land this aircraft because I have the ability, because I believe in me. That's what I really admire most about this lady.
Some of the women share the story of being the first in their field.
I've flown many different airplanes for American. I was hired as a flight engineer on the 727, and I was a captain on the 707. So what's significant is that I was their first Latina captain for American.
As the women share their stories, they open doors for mentoring the next generation.
When I started flying, I had the opportunity to see a women pilot that had the same skin color as me, she was in uniform, she was very young. And that moment, my mother said, look at her closely, that can be you. So it's very inspiring for me to, now in this part of my career, being able to do it for other women and for other little girls. So it means a lot.
Student pilot Belen Lopez was inspired by these women. She traveled all the way from California to Maryland to meet them.
I found somebody that I can relate to and somebody that can relate to me and share that same experience. So it felt good. It felt like home, like a second home.
Josh Cochran, AOPA Live.
To hear more stories from these women, check out the book, Latinas in Aviation by Jacqueline Ruiz. When we come back, a big week ahead in business aviation.
And to boldly go. Don't engage your warp drive. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. It's a bit out of most of our wheelhouses, but it's important for the industry nonetheless. The National Business Aviation Association Business Aviation Convention and Exhibition is next week in Las Vegas. And why should you care about the upmarket turbines? Well, the technology introduced and developed for that end of the business eventually works its way down to many of our lighter airplanes. The event showcases some of the gee-whiz stuff on the cutting edge. We'll be there next week to bring you the highlights. And one of the new technologies being revealed early, this is the Honeywell Anthem flight deck. It's a first, a cloud-connected system. Anthem enables high levels of automation and operational collaboration for aircraft of all sizes and missions. Connecting to the cloud, a first in avionics, creates many capabilities, and Honeywell designed the system to protect against unauthorized access. Passing that test will be the key to realizing the benefits. We'll have more on this system in a future episode. And another milestone pass for the Beechcraft Denali. The GE Catalyst engine that will power the Denali flew for the first time on the wing of a Beechcraft King Air. The flight took off and landed at the Berlin airport. GE says the Catalyst is the first new clean sheet turboprop design to enter the general aviation market in 50 years. And it's the first engine built with 3D printed parts.
And GE Aviation just won a contract from NASA to develop technology for electric propulsion as part of NASA's plan to introduce electric power plants for commercial air travel by 2035. The agency awarded $179 million to GE and another $74.3 million contract to magniX. Over the next few years, the companies are expected to demonstrate their technology through ground and flight tests. Accidental visual flight into instrument meteorological conditions is a known killer. Between 2010 and 2019, 184 fatal accidents, including 20 helicopter accidents, were caused by pilots becoming disoriented after inadvertent entry into IMC. Now, it's hard to train for accidental entry scenarios due to the nature of view limiting devices. But now there's a smart view limiting device called Icarus. AOPA content producer David Toulis put it to the test.
You take the flight controls.
I have the flight controls.
You have the flight controls. I am safety pilot at this point.
I was in Maryland's Middletown Valley outside of Frederick on a glorious day with visual meteorological conditions when visibility suddenly sank to 1 mile.
Oh man, we're running into some IMC here along our route.
Oh my goodness.
Looks like the visibility just went down to 1 mile as we're climbing up into this cloud.
It is pretty thick around here.
Yeah, oh man.
Safety pilot Paul manipulated the Icarus app to simulate varying visibilities. It was quite realistic.
Oh man, as we get higher into this, that visibility's dropping down even further, isn't it?
I cannot see anything outside.
Well, that's a half a mile of visibility. I wonder what happens when we get a little bit further up into the soup and we go to less than half a mile. Man, I'm glad we're on an IFR plan right now, right?
Me too.
What's the key request? Yeah, you know, we keep flying through these little puppies right here.
This is so bizarre. This is so cool, though.
Isn't it?
I'm impressed with this device. And the fact that you don't know what's going on, as a student, you really got to be on the artificial horizon. You know, you got to be on that G5. You really got to stay with it.
You know, it's fun. It's like, you know, pressing a button over here and changing the visibility for you. And it's kind of neat to see it just come in and out there.
Yeah. The device is a bit pricey at $1,000 for the fixed wing version and $1,500 for the helicopter model. And it was a bit fragile too. It showed signs of a stress crack, even though we treated it with the utmost of respect. Inventor Nick Sinopoli pledged that he was on top of it and has recently engineered a design improvement. But as far as view-limiting devices go, you'd be hard-pressed to find a more high-tech approach. David Toulis, AOPA Live.
Read more about Icarus on our website.
Virgin Galactic is cleared for takeoff again. The company had been grounded pending FAA review of its July flight. That mission was wildly off course, according to the feds. The FAA accepted the corrective actions proposed by Virgin. They include blocking off additional airspace for the flights and improving communications with FAA air traffic control. And now to Oldley Go, where many have gone before. Yes, Captain James Tiberius Kirk, a.k.a. William Shatner, is scheduled to reach the edge of space next Tuesday. It won't be a 5-year mission, and he's not likely to find strange new worlds, but he will set the record for the oldest person in space. Shatner is 90. And he'll ride Blue Origin's New Shepard rocket to about 62 miles above the Earth. It'll be the second crewed flight for Blue Origin. And to Mr. Shatner, we say, live long and prosper.
And finally, there was another unusual airplane at the Aviator Showcase. This Cessna Caravan with a highly unusual paint job is owned by Dog Is My Co-Pilot, a nonprofit that flies dogs from shelters in the Southwest to forever homes in the Northwest. The Caravan is well suited to the job. It's carried up to 120 dogs at a time. So what's it like with that many canines in a Caravan?
Surprisingly, it gets pretty quiet pretty quick. They go to sleep. I think it's the hum of the engine that kind of puts them all to sleep. The smell can be kind of tough.
Well, Doc Blue is one of 6 volunteer pilots that keeps the Caravan flying just about 7 days a week. Now, he brought the airplane to the event to showcase the utility of GA airplanes and to shine a spotlight on the organization's goal of reducing euthanasia rates in overcrowded shelters. The group has flown, get this, some 20,000 dogs to new homes. Well, that's our program for the week. We hope you like it. Send us a comment and subscribe.
We'll be reporting next week from NBA in Las Vegas. Follow AOPA's social media for the latest from the show. We'll bring you a full recap on Thursday. See you then.
There are are many important things to consider before purchasing an aircraft. Let the experts at Aerospace Reports help guide you through the process. We combine expert knowledge with our long-standing commitment to personalized customer service to perfect your transaction. Learn more at aerospacereports.com.